afternoon and welcome to Delphi Economic Forum. This is a panel on capacitating public administrations, and it is co-organized by the European Commission's Directorate-General for Structural Reform Support. Public administrations play an important role in European member states in building resilience, but it also driving growth. At the same time, they face challenges which a panel of distinguished speakers will help us address today. On stage, we have with us former Vice President of the European Commission, Mrs. Viviane. We have with us the former Minister of Interior of Greece, Mr. Makis Voridis. We have the Director-General of the DG for Structural Reform Support, Mr. Mario Nava, and online we have Minister for Digitalisation of the Netherlands, Mr. Alexandra van Huffelen, and the Director-General of the Ministry of Public Administration of Slovenia, Mr. Peter Pogačar. One of the challenges public administrations face has to do with reskilling and upskilling of the public administrations. And since you just finished your term as Minister of Interior, Mr. Voridis, what were the challenges faced by the Greek public administration and what reforms did you initiate in order to address those?
Right, thank you very much for the invitation, and thanks all the participants for being here in Greece, but also for participating digitally. Actually, now I am campaigning because it's campaigning time in Greece. We are having election, but I think it's an appropriate time to catch up with what we've already done. And when we're talking about actually reforming the state, I think there are four main pillars that we've been working in. Mainly, it's human capital, where we're trying to create motivation for our employees. We have adopted a meritocratic performance assessment system that it is going to be starting, the evaluation is going to be starting during 2023. And this kind of evaluation is actually connected with performance bonuses, which are connected in their time with the goal setting in the system. Goal setting, again, it's something quite new. We've renewed that completely. So we've also opened career paths. We're using mentoring. And I think this is actually an investment in human capital, trying to reform the scene completely. As far as organization of the state is concerned, I think we'll have to thank we have to thank EU and the structural funds, and because with their help, we have actually implemented a system of allocation and reallocation of competences at the different levels of state, what we call the multi-level governance, which will help us a lot with arranging the relationship between decentralized administration and local administration. And we've also invested a lot in creating a more accountable and transparent system in public administration, especially by training internal auditors, plus digital, of course, transformation of public sector was very important, especially by using systems that could help us allocate in the proper way by using artificial intelligence, the proper employee at the proper place. And this is what we call the human resources management system. So yes, new skills are required. And actually, we are now in a plan that we are reskilling 250,000 of our employees in order to give you and to understand the magnitude, let's say, of this effort. I'll have to say that 550,000 are the total of our employees in the public sector, so it's actually practically half of them. They're going to be reskilled under a scheme which is hopefully, which is going to be, when we implement that in its let's say, in its totality, it's going to be done every year. It's going to be carried every year by our National School for Public Administration. So yes, we are heavily investing in reskilling because we think that's one of the main challenges that we're going to be facing as digital transformation is going to be happening, not only in public administration, but mostly and mainly in economy and society, and public administration must catch up.
Thanks a lot. And given that 2023 is the year of skills, reskilling, upskilling is very pertinent, and Mr. Pogačar could share with us the same experience from Slovenia and what the public administration ministry is doing there on this issue.
Well, thank you for your question. It's a pleasure to be not there, but unfortunately online. But as in other member states, Slovenia is also facing the demographic challenge and consequently the aging of workforce. So this is even more significant in civil service due to the austerity measures from financial crisis 10 years ago, when we were actually not recruiting at all. Somehow we lost a whole generation of young people in civil service, and that's probably the situation also in other member states. So just to give you an example for Slovenia, 50% of civil service in Slovenia is today over 50 years old, and only 6% of them is younger than 30. So therefore in Slovenia, we prepared HRM strategy for civil service, and it consists out of three main elements: measures to attract young talent in the civil service, to build a trust in civil service or brand of civil service as an employer, and of course investing in skills of the civil service, skills that will be needed in the future. So in Slovenia, we are trying to attract young talents in the Slovenian civil service. But remember, attracting and bring young talents to civil service is just the first step. Once you do that, you need to enable different generations who work in different ways to work together effectively. It's not enough just to bring young talents to civil service, but then you have two totally different generations there. So to foster intergenerational cooperation in order to benefit from experience and knowledge of older employees, and to ensure their transfer of knowledge to younger generation. You know, there's no young and no old. You need both. As an old African proverb says, the youth can walk faster, but the elder knows the road. So it is important to strengthen also the trust of politics toward the civil service as being a complementary part of the government and being there to help implement the policy of the government. Consequently, that would increase the independence of the civil service and decrease the desire. But at the end, you know, with all this digital transformation, green transition, after all, let us not forget, civil service is all about the people, to put the right people in the right places, to put people who are equipped with the right competences, integrity, and skills. So one of the main priorities in Slovenia is also to change culture management of leadership regarding digital work and work flexibility. I usually say to have more leaders in the civil service and less bosses. So regarding the civil servants and their skills, we have an issue with the aging of workforce in combination with the lack of lifelong learning. So because after 40 years of age, the Slovenian civil servants, they start to participate in lifelong learning. So in the HRM strategy that we prepared and with the reform of the Civil Service Act, we are implementing the mandatory participation in education for all the civil servants. Because in the future, there will not be enough young talents who are already equipped with digital skills. So the only way to compete with the challenges of the future is to invest in digital skills of the existing civil servant. So just to conclude, no one really knows what skills will be needed in the future. So that is why the most important skill for public administration will be the ability to continuously learn and adapt. And this is what we are trying to do in Slovenia. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. You spoke about the need to continuously adapt, but you also spoke about the need to be digitally adapt. And Minister Van Huffelen can give us the Dutch experience on how to keep up with the rapid technological change and the challenges that brings to public administration. So, Minister Van Huffelen, the floor to you.
Well, thank you very much. And also very sorry from my side that I cannot be with you today in person. And I'm actually driving, so I hope that you can hear me well. The only thing I can say for myself is that I'm going through a very rainy and cold Netherlands, so I'm hoping it's better where you are. In order to answer to your question, of course, digitalization is shaping more and more our daily lives. This is not only true for government, but for the whole of society. And therefore, we have developed an agenda, a working agenda for the Netherlands and also for the Dutch government that actually contains of 3 major items. One is, and that's in relation to what's been told by the speakers before, that it's crucial that everyone can participate in the digital world. And what we're seeing today is that is not the case. So many people, whether it's inside government or also people in society that are using the services of government, are unable to do that in a digital way. And in order to make the government more efficient, we want to bring more services and tasks into the digital era. And that means that we do not only need to train civil servants, but also that we need to spend a lot of time in order to make sure that the people that live in our country are able to participate by either being able to use digital tools, but also to use them well. To use them safely, to be sure that they are dealing with the right organizations, that they are media savvy, and so on and so forth. The second part of the program is that we must be sure that people can trust the digital world and also the digital government. So we have to work on cybersecurity, for instance, but also make sure that the rules of privacy are being adhered to, so that people are aware that they can use the digital services of the government, but also are sure that we're not going to use their privacy or misuse their privacy, but do it in the right way and make sure also that there's enough transparency and of course also cybersecurity. The third point is that we want people to have control over their digital lives. And together also with the European Union, who is crucial in establishing a digital world that people are actually, not only able to use, but can use trustworthy and have control over their own lives, is, for instance, by creating an open source wallet that people can use. So these 3 items are of great importance in our, what we call value-driven digital transformation plan. So that's the 3 things: make sure that everybody can participate, make sure that it's safe, make sure that people have control over their own digital lives, and that is of crucial importance to step up in the digital world that is changing, has been changing in the last years, but more rapidly changing these days. For instance, if you look at the usage of
We can't hear very well anymore. We cannot hear. So I think since we are talking about the issue of digital transition, and we have with us a pioneer of the need for e-government, a former commissioner, European commissioner responsible for information society, I'll pass the floor to Mrs. Viviane Reding to tell us, how do you see today the digital transition, the challenges, but also the opportunities?
Well, let's go 20 years ago, when I was commissioner, and I had a responsibility to lead Europe and our member states into the right direction. So I was not thinking about administration. I was thinking about the people. about the citizen. And knowing out of experience that all politics is local, be it nationally, general or European, it is local in the end. And people will judge their politicians if they see that their quality of life, the credibility, the accessibility of administrations is given or not. So how to help governments, local governments, in order to create this quality of life? And I saw that at the moment that technology is available in order to help us. Now, public administration. You have the solution to have people standing in line or people being online. Okay, so e-government, let's go for it. People being online, and the civil servants who are freed from a lot of administrative work to be there for counseling, for direct interaction with the people. So to get rid of the bulk, of the administrative bulk. The second thing, I was thinking about our rural areas, our islands, our mountains, where people do not have access to everything to which you have access to in a city. For instance, about health. There are doctors missing in all these places. There are many old people in all these places. Now, the result will be that the old people move out and come to the cities, and our rural areas, our villages, our islands are deserted. So, e-health, electronic telemedicine, in order to help the few doctors or medical services around, and to be a link between the specialists who are not in the deserted areas and the people, and to be a helping hand to the medical aid on place. And then e-learning. You do not have everywhere the same quality of education for our children. And that is not the fault of the teachers or the professors. It's the fault of the capabilities. So why not give equal capabilities to all, help the teachers also in faraway regions to have part of their teaching material online so that students can participate. It was the beginning of e-learning. So I had always in mind how you can ameliorate the life of the citizens, and I must say, like our colleague from the Netherlands, that unfortunately there is still a long way to go, because we have to think about availability, we have to think about education of the educators, and we have to think about cybersecurity. So we're going into the right direction, but it is a long way to go, and the problem in the end is always the same. You know that the speed of politics is slow, and the speed of technology is quick.
Thank you, Mrs. Reding. And what is particularly interesting about this panel is that we're hearing perspectives from 3 member states, also a former European Commissioner who was representing all of them. So coming to Mr. Mario Nava, who's Director-General of DG Reform today, we heard about a lot of challenges. The need to modernize public administrations, to reskill it, upskill it, to make it digitally adapt, to make sure that it can serve the public efficiently and digitally. How does the European Commission support member states in this effort?
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me tell you that it's heartening to see 3 member states here very much engaged into that, because the recovery and resilience of Europe, and in particular the recovery and resilience facility part of the Next Generation EU, assumes and relies on the fact that the public administration works. If the public administration does not work, it's very difficult to put it in place. So it's very heartening what we heard now. What we do, I'm going to quote 3 concrete things, and I hope nobody is shocked by the concreteness of that. But what we are discussing are really things that need to happen on the ground. So the first one is the technical support instrument, which is a new instrument of the European Commission that Ursula von der Leyen has brought. We had a predecessor, but now I think it has been taken to another level, and this allows us to truly support member states at their request. So this is very good because it allows member states to first analyze what they truly need, and then they request, and then we go and support them. Of course, most of the requests concerns either the flagship initiatives, which comes from the Next Generation EU or from the technical support itself, or concern the big guidelines that we all know, green and digital, and so on and on. But it's very good that member states know that there is a service able to support them. The second thing is a group, an expert group, of which both Alexandra van Huffelen, Makis Voridis, and Peter are part, which is the expert group on public administration and governance. We started that expert group 2 years ago, and then progressively we rolled it out, and the scope of the expert group is, of course, to facilitate between member states an exchange on A, the issue of skills that you have heard now, B, for example, the issue of attractiveness of public administration. This is an issue of which I think we really need to talk a bit more. I mean, at the end of the university, we need to make public administration attractive. The best pupils should also have that option in mind. And of course, we discussed in this group the issue of the evidence-based policy making. At the initiative, I'm very happy to say, of Greece. Greece is leading a group of 7 countries into that. This is essential. If your laws are not evidence-based, if citizens cannot, in a way, recognize the laws in a need that they find in their daily life, they are less likely to respect or to like or to take profit, to take advantage of the laws, which is what we really need to do. And so I'm very happy to say that this group that we launched 2 years ago, progressively member states have entered. For example, Greece hosted us last summer. This summer will be Italy hosting us, and then other member states. So I think this is very good. And last but not least, we have in store a new initiative to help member states, which is called Compact, which is a game of words where PA means public administration. And it has to do with 3 very concrete areas. One is the competency framework. Most member states have a competency framework. We are trying to make it relevant and consistent for the public administration. 2 is the exchange of civil servants across member states, a sort of Erasmus for civil servants, which will be extremely useful and which will really, I guess, help a lot, at least judging from the interest of member states. 27 member states out of 27 are looking at that, so there is no doubt on that. And finally, and I blush in front of Mrs. Reding, who was the leader, facilitating, again, digital rollout and digital innovation into legislation. These are the 3 areas we are working on.
Thanks a lot, Mr. Nava. And we have about 13 minutes left. So we have a second round of questions. We have about 2.5 minutes for each speaker. And with the question, if you want to give us a concluding remark, please do so. And we start with the speakers online. Mr. Pogačar, we heard a lot about the importance of e-government and digital transformation. So could you tell us from your perspective what you saw as advantages from the digital transformation for Slovenia?
When we talk about digital transformation, we always talk about the future of public administrations, because digital is actually the future. But, you know, it's always a question how the public administrations will look in the future. So if I only had a crystal ball to answer that. Actually, when we plan the future, in the past, we always planned the future based on past events, and this is totally outdated. In this rapidly changing world and rapidly changing society, the future cannot be planned anymore, but it must be anticipated. So our idea is that we should keep strategic orientation goals or our public administration, despite different shocks caused by potential future crises. So it's about keep balance between short-term activities and long-term vision. And long-term vision is about digital transformation of society. And the most important skill, as I mentioned, will be the ability to continuously learn and adapt. So the public administration should become a learning organization, and this is a vision for Slovenia. But if I go back to the benefits of digitalization, well, actually, the COVID crisis has proved that public administrations can be agile and resilient, despite the stereotypes that go about the public administration. Public administrations throughout Europe managed to transform to remote work with all the digital issues and lack of digital skills, and they actually provided all the services in no time for the citizens during the COVID crisis. Also for the public administration during the COVID crisis, digital skills improved significantly in no time, which means that it is possible. We just need a push. So what will this push be? I hope we won't be needing another COVID crisis. But nevertheless, with digital transformation, we should just not go back to the old ways of working. We should study what worked well and integrate into the system the successful ways of digital working. Just one more thing why it is also a must for public administration, because digital transformation for public administration, it is not a question anymore yes or no. It is just when and how fast can be transformed. Because also with my first intervention when I was talking about the lack of young talents in the civil service, with digital transformation, don't forget this, we have the opportunity to renew the image of public service for young talents. We can prove that public administration can be an attractive workplace just to attract and retain new generations, new talents. It can be an attractive workplace with extensive use of digital technologies, remote working, work-life balance, innovation practices, agile tools of HRM, etc. But also with digital transformation, that it can be a workplace which is also environmental friendly, with energy savings, electricity, paper, work materials, and so on. So to conclude, digital transformation in Slovenia is not a question anymore, and nowhere is a question anymore whether yes or no. It is just how and how successful will be with all the side effects, also some negative that we have to bear in mind. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much. You once again highlighted the importance of digital transformation, but with it come threats that Mrs. Van Huffelen spoke about before, about the need to take care of cybersecurity and any threats linked to artificial intelligence. So in giving us your concluding remark, Mrs. Van Huffelen, could you touch on this issue? More or less 2 minutes, please. Thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you very much. And of course, there is great opportunities that we have to increase and to also make the services of government more efficient and better for citizens, whether it's applying for a permit or for a new passport or anything. But what we've seen in the Netherlands also is that when we're using AI in order not only to help people, but also to find out if they were wrongfully applying for a subsidy, we got into a situation where people got very damaged. We call it the so-called childcare benefit scandal in the Netherlands. And it's really been a scandal because people were wrongfully accused of applying for a subsidy they were not eligible to. And this led to people, usually people with very low incomes, having to pay back a great deal of money that they could not, and therefore gotten into big financial trouble. So it is very important that whatever tools we're using, digital tools we're using in government, that we make sure that they're being applied in the right way. And I'm very happy to have read this morning that the AI Act is probably going to be applied by, or can be applied by all of us soon. Because if you want to use AI as a government, it's best to use it for good. So, for instance, use AI to find the people that are eligible for certain kinds of subsidies or income support, instead of trying to figure out if they're doing something wrong. And doing that in a way that is, of course, right, that is ethical, that is not hampering them in their daily lives, that is treating their privacy in the right way, is something that is super important. So I'm a very, very much a pro of digital government, of also using AI to improve the governmental services. But we have to be very, very aware of the fact that AI can also be very damaging. And therefore, I think it's super good that we're going to implement the AI Act soon. I'm also very happy that with what Mario was saying from the EU and also the exchange program for civil servants, because there's so much more that we need to learn from each other. There's very good examples of digitalization in government in several European countries, but we also have to learn from each other's mistakes. So I also be very happy to share all that we just basically did very wrong with everybody, to make sure that nobody is going to make those mistakes. And I'm very happy also if I can exchange people that are working now for the Dutch government, so that they can learn from the good examples from Slovenia or Greece or from Italy or from all the other member states, because there's many things that we need to do in the coming time to make sure that we are going to have a digital government that is working very efficiently for people that are able to really participate and that can do that in a safe way. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. We have very little time left, but even with this little time, we would like to hear from you, Mrs. Reding. You're a pioneer of EU regulation. How can EU regulation help address the type of threats that Mrs. Van Huffelen just spoke about?
Well, let me just continue on what Mrs. Van Huffelen said, because technology evolves. What we were speaking now about e-government, e-health, e-learning, is basic technology. But technology is already a step forward, and I am sometimes afraid that governments or politicians are not taking that into consideration. And that is why it's very important that at the level of the EU, we have set up the safeguards in order to have a positive utilization of technology. AI Act, for instance, it is very clearly that it depends on what data you choose. If they are biased in the beginning, your solution will be biased. If you write non-transparent algorithms on the basis of this data, you come to a completely non-utilizable system. That is why it is important to have the cybersecurity built on and the transparency built on from the beginning on. And I would like to say a warning, because what we see now is a terribly quick development, and we have only seen the beginning of it. AI will be breathtaking, but I tell you, in 5 years we have quantum computing. Quantum computing is 1,000 times more quick than what we have today in computing, with all that means. Now, as government, we have two possibilities. We wait and see and run behind and are overwhelmed. Or we start to prepare now and we control the whole thing to the good of our citizens.
Thanks a lot. We will leave the very challenging task to the last two speakers to give us within 1 minute your view about the capacitating public administrations. What should be the key thing we focus on? Mr. Voridis.
Okay. In 1 minute, I think the only thing I have time to do is to thank the inspirational leadership of Mario Nava in DG Reform for seriously the last 10 years supporting Greece in all the efforts that we've done. And just to tell you good news here, after 10 years of continuous support, I think that now Greece is in the position to transfer this knowledge also to other countries. And the latest news are that now we are in agreement with, in a project with École Nationale d'Administration and our School of Public Administration to reskill and upskill Albanian public employees. So I think that that's the line where we should go, skilling, upskilling, reskilling, digital skills. I think this is a major project. Greece is benefited by a huge, as I've already explained, in the Recovery and Resilience Plan, the 250,000 employees that are going to be digitally trained and certified. I think this is a precondition in order to have public administrations able to face the challenges that, Mr. Commissioner, you've mentioned. So, Mario, thank you again so much for all the support.
And Mr. Nava, we give you the floor for the very challenging minute of, in zero time, concluding this panel.
No, but I think all the panelists gave me excellent opportunities, and Makis, Voridis, how we concluded. I think we worked and we learned a lot from what we did. That's the important part. And as you know, together with the OECD, Europe has developed the principles of good administration. We were able to do it only because of the work on the ground. There are very many. Let me quote three. One, what Makis Voridis has just said, evidence-based policy. Two, professional, independent, but at the same time transparent and accountable administration. This is crucial to function. And three, what we all want as citizens, a human-centric public administration. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Perfect. So on behalf of DG Reform, thank you for joining us today. Thanks to the speakers online. Thanks to the speakers on stage. Thank you.
Thank you.